U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy have arrived in Kiev on a joint visit as Ukraine continues to press for the right to use U.S. and British long-range missiles against Russia. The two men traveled together to the Ukrainian capital after talks in London. They are due to meet President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has repeatedly called on Washington to loosen the limits on U.S.-supplied weapons. Blinken said one of their goals is to hear directly from the Ukrainian leadership about their objectives and what they can do to support those needs. Earlier, U.S. President Joe Biden said his administration is working on whether to lift the restrictions. The policy will come under further scrutiny when UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer meets Biden at the White House on Friday.
Here together as partners to listen, to share ideas, and to continue to plan the way forward, I hope makes it very clear that there's an enduring commitment to Ukraine and to the Ukrainian people.
We have a £3 billion commitment to Ukraine to spend year on year until we see the result and the Russian imperialism and aggression come to an end. That is why we are here, and we're here to listen at this critical moment, to hear and understand the issues on the battlefield, the further support that you believe you need to understand that as we head towards critical moments in the international calendar, UNGA particularly coming up in the United Nations, but also the G20 and other forums this year. We remain united in our stand, because the only person that gains any sense that we are not together, of course, is Putin.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is hoping for a decisive outcome in discussions on provisions of long-range weapons, emphasizing the importance of these systems for Ukraine's defense. Speaking at the annual Crimean Platform event in Kiev, Zelensky also said he wants support for a plan that would force Russia to end the war diplomatically.
Це план посилення, серйозне посилення України.
The plan is to significantly strengthen Ukraine. In my opinion, this will have, incidentally, psychological and political impacts, and military consequences that will influence Russia's decision to end the war. This plan must be presented before the Second Peace Summit to pressure Russia into a diplomatic resolution to end the war. If our partners support it, it will certainly help Ukraine compel Russia to end the war. Now, regarding talks with the Russians, someone needs to have the authority to engage in such negotiations. Personally, I have not given anyone that authority.
And for more on this, I'm joined on the line by European Affairs analyst Dr. Laskiewicz. Good afternoon, you're welcome, or good evening, where you are. Now, what is the significance of the strike of Ukraine on Moscow? I mean, we've been hearing several strikes on Moscow, and what does it reveal about Ukraine's military capabilities?
Well, it is a bigger strike than before, and so to that extent, it shows that their capabilities are improving. It's a bigger strike than before, which implies that the West is, if you like, accepting that Ukraine can make these strikes, because it did not in any way decry them. And of course, from that point of view, it is a problem for Russia.
Well, we understand that Ukraine is pushing for the right to use US and British long-range missiles against Russia. What are the potential consequences of escalating missile use in this conflict?
Unfortunately, you have used the correct term. Escalation. It is already an escalation to Ukraine, but as I understand it, they are treated as Ukrainian missiles. However, if US and UK missiles are being used, then it follows that there is a significant escalation which Russia must address if it is to remain be seen as a power. Moreover, it can be treated, and this is what Putin is saying, that if these are missiles supplied with the direct express permission to use against Russia, as a strike by UK and USA, at least in propaganda terms. It therefore follows this escalation unfortunately, is a step closer to World War III. Why they would do such a thing and give this permission is unclear, because Ukraine is successfully defending itself, and therefore there would seem to be no need for this.
All right, let's know how Russia, if this particular demand is actually, approved, how do you think Russia will respond to this in terms of increased availability, of advanced missiles for Ukraine?
Well, unfortunately, it leads closer and closer to the problem that Russia could use nuclear weapons. The central problem is this, and it was already during the Cold War addressed, so to speak, the other way around. There comes a point, if conventionally you cannot win, you go nuclear. This was the presumption during the Cold War. It was assumed the West would go nuclear first because of this, because Russia and its Soviet allies then held the preponderance of conventional arms. Here it's, so to speak, the other way around. If the Ukrainians get a great many missiles and so are able to, so to speak, seriously hurt Russia, then Russia will either have to give in, which seems unlikely, or take that step further. And the problem is, it is likely to take the step further because the Russians have it in their military doctrine that nuclear weapons can be used.
Talk to us about Iran's decision to openly support Russia and how it can affect its relationships with Western countries and regional allies.
Yes, this is an interesting one, an interesting question. The point about Iran coming out into the open is that it is a significant challenge to the West because it shows that Russia is openly supported by yet another country. In this respect, the problem here is that where Iran goes, others may follow. Of course, it complicates Iran's relationship with the West, but Iran has always had a complicated relationship now for many years. And therefore, it is unlikely that this threat of having further sanctions is going to significantly move them. It does, however, strengthen President Putin's hand. So all in all, it is a successful moment for Russia that Iran so decided to speak.
Will this actually affect the global balance of power globally?
It is... Yeah, well, to some extent, yes, it does strengthen Russia's hands. So the question is quite right. The point is not of enormous importance, is what China says and does, which is of enormous importance. But nevertheless, it is a serious move. Iran is by no means a small country, has been already supplying arms. And therefore, yes, there is an effect of strengthening Russia's hand, but not fatally for the West, simply a serious matter.
Thank you so much, European Affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Really appreciate your insight.